First up, Paul Hutchins for 3D Journey. Hey, Paul, tell us a little bit about today's journey.
Take with W3 shots, not Leopix conversions, of the Scottish island of Arran, which is spelled Arran, which is distinct from the Irish Arran, Aran, where they make the sweaters and the woolen jerseys. It's a few miles off the west coast of Scotland in the Firth of Clyde, beg pardon. The Isle of Arran lies off the west coast of Scotland, located in the Firth of Clyde, and is the 7th largest Scottish island. It has an area of 167 square miles and a population of around 5,000. It is often called Scotland in miniature and is divided into highland and lowland areas. There are no airports on Arran, and it is served by 2 ferry routes operated by the Caledonian MacBrayne or CalMac Ferry Company. Most visitors take the car ferry from the mainland port of Ardrossan, from where 2 sailings per day go to the small town of Brodick. The ferry takes foot passengers, cars and lorries, and the island relies on these ships for the transport of food and essential items. If the weather is bad, ferries can be cancelled and the shops can quickly run out of food. The journey time takes about 55 minutes. When the tide is out, Brodick has a large shingle beach. Which also reveals the skeleton of several boats. And jellyfish can be deposited on the beach. The main industry on Arran is tourism, and people come to enjoy walking, cycling, and to watch the wildlife. There are also a number of golf courses. Other industries include a microbrewery, farming and forestry. On the west coast there are some spectacular coastal walks going down to the beach. One walk goes to the so-called King's Cave. The cave entrance is protected by a large metal gate and contains Christian and pre-Christian carvings. It is claimed that Robert the Bruce was inspired to fight for the Scottish throne, having watched the spider repeatedly trying to spin its web in the cave. He subsequently fought at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314 and became King of Scotland. The Preaching Cave was once used as a school. It is now home to seabirds who nest on ledges within the cave. In the summer season, tourists can take the pleasure ship Waverley around the island. It is the last seagoing paddle steamer in the world and runs day trips from the Mull of Kintyre. She was built in 1947 and can carry over 900 passengers. And finally, the creamery near Brodick makes the famous Arran cheese. They come in many flavours and can be shipped all over the world. And that's all for now.
Thank you, as always. Much
Pleasure.
appreciated
Thanks, Johnny.
for sharing your photography, your great photography, and your knowledge, and your great vacations. I admire you more for the vacation than anything else.
I know, it was great times.
You get around. Okay.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. I look forward to next week. Now, kids, it is time for the Anaglyph Jukebox. Children of all ages. I should change this to that. Nah, I feel like I'm in a circus. Could pass as a carny for sure. Now, kids, it's time for the Anaglyph Jukebox. Hi, Joe. What do you have for us this week?
Well, hello, audience and children of all ages. The audio for today's jukebox is a demo track recorded by Harry Nilsson and was a hit for the Monkees back in the day. No surprise then that you'll see in this jukebox Mickey Dolenz, but also look out for Glenn Campbell, Alice Cooper, Keith Moon, Paul and Linda McCartney, Elton John, Ringo Starr, and Harry's great friend, John Lennon. In 1968, John Lennon told the London Evening Standard journalist Maureen Cleave, quote, "Nilsson is my favorite group."
You're not the only cuddly toy that was ever enjoyed by any boy. You're not the only choo-choo train that was left out in the rain the day after Santa came. You're not the only cherry delight that was left in the night and gave up without a fight. You're not the only cuddly toy that was ever enjoyed by any boy. You're not the kind of girl to tell your mother the kind of company you keep. I never told you that I love no other. You must have dreamed it in your sleep. You're not the only cuddly toy that was ever enjoyed by any boy. You're not the only choo-choo train that was left out in the rain the day after Santa came. La 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 la. You're not the kind of girl to tell your mother the kind of company you keep. I never told you that I love no other. You must have dreamed it in your sleep. You're not the only cuddly toy that was ever enjoyed by any boy. Little harmony there. You're not the only choo-choo train that was left out in the rain the day after Santa came. You're not into the but a bibari, but a boring, ba bo 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 la 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 la, bo ba ba, ba 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 ba.
Thank you for taking us to Harry Nilsson. The world needs a few more Harry Nilssons, and you know, really, it's incredible story. His whole life is an incredible story. And particularly if you're interested in the American Songbook, because he does all those songs from the 30s on that album that should have been, like, his manager was like, you could buy a mansion. You got the car, you could buy a mansion. We need a hit. We need a hit. And he goes back to the old hits, because that's the kind of guy he was. I love people who can do that with their money. Now, it's time for this week's guest, Sean Frayne, CEO and co-founder of the Looking Glass factory. Thanks again, Joe. Sorry, I don't know if I went through all that. It's their 10th year of creating mischief. Sean and his crew used to come to our monthly real meetings and pick our brains. And it's a good thing they didn't listen to a word we had to say. Actually, he and his brilliant crew were able to separate the wheat from the chaff and go on to create some of the most amazing products to ever hit the 3D market. Prove me wrong. Not only great products, but disruptive ideas and ways of doing things that challenge the way we look at our images. And they need to appeal simultaneously, remember, you know, the 50 of us that are out there, and we're not going to support these endeavors for him, but they need to appeal not only to hobbyists, but reach a wider audience and convince them why they need a product like this, and they do. That is entrepreneurship at its finest, man. Not to mention making it through the pandemic. You forget that stuff. How would you like to run a company, man? Anyway, so lots to be admired about these folks. A lot. I hear a microphone. Could whoever that may be, may you please think in peace. Anyway, and those are only a few of the reasons that their Kickstarters are so successful. There's integrity. I can promise you this. There's integrity behind everything they accomplish, and that is, man, being an entrepreneur, struggling through all this, and keeping integrity is incredible. Now that I have made the poor guy blush, let me introduce Sean Frey.
Hey, thanks, John. Hey, everybody. Good to see everyone again. Hope to run into you in live 3D in person at some point in the coming few months. I'm calling you from somewhat rainy LA, Los Angeles right now. We're still based in Brooklyn, New York. I'm just not there right now. And I've got some stuff to share today. I know some of you all have our older products and some of the new products as well. So thank you for supporting what we've been building over the years in Looking Glass. I'm going to show you some of the stuff that's been cooking just over the last few months and even the last few days that is part of this new 3D wave that I think is going to take it out of the cul-de-sac that at least Looking Glass has been in. And I think generally what we want for 3D is for everybody in the world to understand why it's so amazing. And I think that inflection point, that moment has arrived. And so I'll paint a picture of my views on this big change that is upon us just over the last few months, Looking Glass's role in it, and then other companies' roles in it as well. And hopefully can also share some tips for folks that are interested in getting down and dirty with some of the new 3D stuff. And John's going to interrupt me as I go forth through this.
I'll be so pleased to do.
Yes,
that's
so.
right. I'm anticipating interruption. This is what I went to school for.
Yes.
I was a classic A interrupter. But go ahead. See, so doing a good job so far. Yes, indeed. Well, while you figure out that stuff. Oh, yeah, perfect. It's coming.
We're on. All right. So you'll see some changes to the Looking Glass website coming up. And so some of what you see on here, you might not be able to find today, but you probably will over the coming few weeks. I think this is the craziest thing ever, not in a bad way, in an amazing way. I'm not a headset guy. We own them all, you know, personally, and in the office, we've got all the headsets and worked with all of them. But I think this one's different, actually. So Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, on the cover of multiple magazines, including Vanity Fair, there with what he says is the next iPhone. And saying the thing that we've been saying in Looking Glass, and I think a lot of folks who are on this call have been saying for even longer, that we live in a 3D world, but the content that we enjoy is flat and two-dimensional, and 2D. We've got two eyes and a bunch of our brain goes to processing 3D information. Why is it that all of the digital content that we consume, virtually all of it, is 2D? And Tim Cook is saying like, hey, yeah, I agree with what all of you 3D nerds out there, myself included, have been saying for so long. And I think that's a big moment. Also, this thing is insanely good. I don't know if you've tried it, but the quality is beyond anything I've ever experienced in a head-worn device. And I think that this is ushering in not only a new gadget or gizmo, but a whole new era. Apple's saying this too. So we were in the spatial computing era for about 20-ish years, or we were in the personal computing era for about 20-ish years, and then it switched to mobile first. And now something new is upon us, where there's going to be a lot of ways to experience, create, and communicate in spatial 3D. Some of those will be headset based, and there'll be other ways as well. So this is fantastic, because this is what at least I've been waiting for since I was an 8-year-old kid, and professionally for around a dozen years in Looking Glass, where all the photos, all the memories that we have in our lives, all the entertainment that we enjoy, this Zoom call in the very, very, very soon future is going to go 3D to not just small niche groups like Looking Glass has been and like we are together, but to the whole world. There are a few problems, of course. This is what the reporter who wrote up that article that Tim Cook was in said. When I take it off, referring to the Vision Pro, when I take off the Vision Pro, every other device feels flat and boring. So I think we're at a crossroads right now, or there's a fork in the road where it's virtually guaranteed now there's going to be headsets of some sort in our lives. Apple's making a big bet on this, and the quality level is exceptional, and these systems will get lighter and so on over time. And people will, on one fork of the road, as these systems get better and millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions of people experience what 3D spatial content is like, what it's like to, chat with a relative that's no longer with us, to see a video of them spatially in 3D. I think people are going to look at all of the devices around them, their laptops, their phones, their televisions, their computer monitors, and they're going to say, man, that feels old-fashioned and not in the good way. And I think it's going to be far more pronounced than if we were using a black and white computer right now in a color world. Like, no one would do that. No one's going to just look at only black and white content on a computer monitor today. I think it'll feel even more archaic to look at flat devices after people have gotten a taste of spatial content. And I'm preaching to the choir here. We all have gotten a taste, but many people have not. But that's changing now. So that's one possibility. And the other possibility is that maybe in 5 years, people do say, you know what? I don't want to wear the headset very often at all, but I still got a taste of what that 3D world was like. How can I view that in other devices where I don't need to gear up? And in both cases, there's going to need to be a way for every device that we have in our lives to be 3D and spatial enabled. One of the other problems with the headset, of course, is it's an experience by yourself that no one else can take part in. And human beings, we're a social species. We like to do things with each other. This is me wearing the Vision Pro at a party, a Looking Glass party. It's actually even hard to get your drink in your mouth right now. I think people will find that the experience is amazing. And I think there's a good chance that people will be wearing these future versions of these types of systems for an hour or two a day. But then what do you do for the rest of the time? Are you going to go back to flatland? I don't think so. And we all know that head-worn devices like the Vision Pro are not the only way to experience spatial content. There's other ways, like single viewer systems and also the looking glass types of displays. We're rolling out this full new generation of spatial hardware to support groups of people seeing content in 3D without having to gear up. So this is part of our new hardware lineup. And that includes the Looking Glass Go, which I have right here. I don't know if folks can see the video of me, but I've got one running right here. And it's fantastic. It's a really great device. It connects up over Wi-Fi. So it's the first system where you'll be able to send friends and family that are subscribed to your playlist. You'll be able to send them 3D content and it'll just appear in their device if they subscribe to your playlist without connecting it to a computer. So this is one of the things that John was alluding to, that we're trying to, go down the pyramid a little bit. So not only 3D specialists, but expanding it to folks who are interested in 3D. Maybe everyone who got or tried a Vision Pro, they're like, yeah, that's amazing. But is there something else that lets me enjoy that with my friends and family? So we have a system now that will let people do that without them having to plug it into a computer. But we're not leaving folks behind. So while it's powered over a simple USB-C cord, you can still plug that into your computer. That is a disguised DisplayPort as well. So you can still bypass all of the web-based stuff that's meant to make it easier for folks who are not specialists. And you can make content as you always have on a Looking Glass. You don't even have to use our services. And I'm going to show you an example of that. But for most people outside of this crowd, they want it easy, man. Like they don't want to screw around with Stereo Photomaker, even though I love Stereo Photomaker. My dad is not going to use Stereo Photomaker, but I want him to see the photos of my kids as in spatial three-dimensional glory on his device. And he'll be able to do that for the first time with this new generation of systems. And we're supporting a lot more content, including 2D content that's uplifted to 3D. That's, again, just expanding that base of users. Apple's already doing this with the iPhone 15. You can record spatial video. It's basically fancy side-by-side video. If you all haven't done that yet, I encourage you to do it and go to your local Apple store and ask them to play it for you maybe in the Vision Pro if you don't have one. And of course, you can view all of that stuff, whether it's 3D or 2D, in Looking Glass. You can share it over the internet, and it's actually viewable on any device because of how we've built the platform. And this is all intended to bring this new era of spatial computing beyond the headset. This is not really different than the era of computing that we're leaving now, the flat computing era, where there's a lot of ways to consume content. There's a lot of ways to communicate, through my laptop, through my phone, through my monitor, connected up to my television. All of those 2D interfaces can display 2D communication, 2D entertainment, but in different ways, and the same thing's going to be true, I think, in this new era where sometimes you're going to want to gear up, maybe for an hour or two a day. I hope it's not for 12 hours a day, because that's going to be irritating when folks go to dinners and folks are geared up right across the table from you. I don't think any of us want that. But for an hour or two a day, we're watching a movie in the Vision Pro and future iterations of that type of technology, you'll do it. But then you're going to want to see that spatial content in everything in our lives when you take off the headset. I'm just going to talk a little bit about one particular piece of this spatial computing era, the content that's within it, and focus on memories. Of course, there's things like communication, there's things like design, there's all sorts of magical, wonderful stuff when you go from flatland to 3D. in a variety of different devices. But for the next 5 minutes or so, as I wrap this up, I just want to focus on one of those sectors of memories. This is a photo from 1985. I grew up in Tampa, Florida, and that's me and my brother Ryan fishing by the lake. So we caught a fish. So this is one of my favorite photos, and I saw it the other day. Obviously, this was taken before the spatial computing era was upon us, and I wanted to find a way to have that playing in a way that was new and magical, and could sort of restore that memory anew. And thankfully, there's a lot of cool stuff happening in 2D to 3D image generation, or what other groups call 2D to 3D uplift. If folks click that link, you can't click it. If you wanted to see what that looks like on our platform, which is called Looking Glass Blocks, and you would be able to go to that piece of content, view it in your Looking Glass, and you could add it, to your playlist and so on and so forth. But what I want to sort of point out is that we didn't develop this 2D to 3D uplift technology. We developed a way to take that depth map and make the multiple views that then make it look great in a Looking Glass device. But the way to turn the 2D image into something that has depth is the work of many hundreds of researchers around the world that are using new AI, generative AI techniques to generate that depth from monocular single images. This is using a system called Marigold. Up until 2 or 3 days ago, this was the state of the art for the last few months, but the state of the art is being replaced super fast. So we're keeping a pace of it. I'm going to show you how to do this in a second. So for folks who maybe just want to plug in their Looking Glass Go or other Looking Glass devices that you have into your computer, if you don't want to upload stuff to our servers, then you can do that because you're professionals. And you'll be able to generate this depth information for free. And I'll show you how to do that. But of course, if you're lazier, or if you want to save some time, or if you're not a technically skilled person, then we support this automatically in our platform. So in 2 or 3 months, you'll see an update to our Looking Glass Blocks platform that includes this most advanced depth generation technique. There's nothing else like it out there that's been incorporated into a platform. And so I think you'll be pretty happy with it. And that's me and my brother on the right, after that's pulled in through Looking Glass's software that takes that wonderful depth map that was generated from that archival photo and turns it into a multi-view light field in my Looking Glass. That one has that's the Looking Glass Go, but with a frame that snaps over it. I like mine with a frame on it. It's an optional thing. Here's another example. Yes, it can do dogs with glasses too, not just people. This is just some stock photo I found online. This is not my dog. Marigold generated this fantastic depth and then pulled it into my Looking Glass Go. And again, all this will be instantaneously supported for folks who are not interested in going through like several steps. In a single step, you'll be able to upload a photo. In the background, Marigold's applied, and the multiple views are generated, and boop, it gets sent over to your Looking Glass or your friends and family's Looking Glass if they're subscribed to your playlist. And it'll appear in a few seconds. But again, there's a way that you can do this on your own, at least the depth generation part, if you like. And I'll show how to do that after I wrap all this up. It's another tab. What else is happening? This was just 3 days ago. So there's a conference, sort of an AI developers conference that NVIDIA runs called GTC. It's in San Jose, California. It was amazing. Honestly, there was a lot of amazing. I'd never been before, but I went because NVIDIA, they like Looking Glass displays, and one of the big research groups there they've been developing techniques to do 2D to 3D uplift, but without a depth map. So they end up generating something closer to a NERF. I don't know if everyone's familiar with this new NERF scanning technology, but it basically generates the equivalent of multiple perspectives with refraction and reflection and all of the wonderful things that you would have when you view a three-dimensional scene at a different angle. So they take a 2D image and go straight to something that is perfect for a light field display, where it has multiple perspectives that have reflections and refractions and all of this wonderful stuff. And in fact, none of these people are real. This is another crazy thing about this demo. This is being shown in the Looking Glass 65-inch. None of these people in here are real. All of these are synthetic people generated with another piece of their generative AI algorithm. So they can generate literally an infinite number of people. Obviously, this has scary implications to it. But it's here. It's nothing to do about that other than try to corral the beast that's been released. Our piece of it is interest in how that gets turned into multi-viewer content for a Looking Glass. I know what you're thinking. Is it only images? No, it's not only images. You can also do video. This is also from 3 days ago. This is the first time I saw this. That's yours truly, sort of yucking it up in there in Looking Glass Go. That's a $50 Logitech web camera on that laptop sitting there over the little sign that says playing AI selfie video. That recorded a video of me looking around for 4 or 5 seconds. And then in a few seconds, it generated a multi-view light field 3D video that played instantly in the Looking Glass Go. The quality is kind of crazy. It's not perfect, but as the training data sets of this AI uplift algorithm improve, it's going to get better and better and better at an insane rate. So the next time we chat or meet, hopefully I'll be able to show you this. I'm trying to get them to give us this demo so folks can get a taste of it themselves, for any of you all that swing by the office in Brooklyn sometime. This is crazily good. If you can do video, then you can do real-time video. And that's what they also demonstrated. So using 3 Looking Glass 32-inch devices, NVIDIA took a 2D Logitech webcam and then had Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, do the first 3-way light field communication between 3 Looking Glass devices. This was at SIGGRAPH actually last year, but the technologies that I just showed you for that selfie video, that's the quality that you're going to be able to get from regular 2D video in the not so distant future. And this is software. This is not hardware improvement. This is software piping through our software and all of their magical software and our hardware to enable something that in the past, like a year ago, all of us, and myself included, thought, oh man, to do like HoloCom, like I've dreamed of for a long time, chatting in 3D without a headset on, without glasses to my kids, when I'm not at home, was going to take this crazy array of cameras and this and that. But NVIDIA is showing that maybe not. Maybe you can use AI algorithms to uplift a 2D video feed in real time to a 3D communication feed. That's it. But I wanted to show the Marigold site so you'll can use that if you want. Again, everything that I'm showing, of course, is going to be built in turnkey into the Looking Glass platform over time, starting with images powered by this Marigold algorithm, and we'll roll in new algorithms for depth generation as new stuff comes out that's commercially available. Thank goodness they made that commercially available, because then we can use it, no strings attached. Then we apply our stuff to make the multiple views and blending and so on and so forth that we do under the hood. So for the average consumer, they'll just have the app. So there's a Looking Glass app that's coming out as well when the Looking Glass goes ship in June. So there'll be an iOS and Android app. You can take a photo, manage your playlist, add stuff to playlists that you shared with friends and family, and take any photo, new ones that you shoot with fancy cameras or old archival photos, just like that photo of me and my brother, and then turn it into content for your looking glass. That's it.
Wow. You covered a lot. Notice I
You
basically
didn't
did what I
interrupt
always,
me, John. You didn't interrupt me.
you know, I couldn't because I was so engaged in what you were saying. But you know, that article I brought up the other day, I didn't want to interrupt you. I had several things to do, but you were doing so well, I didn't want to break in. But in this article, from someone who tested the fancy Apple Vision Pro with a, here's a quote. I'd like to think I'm not too vain, but the Vision Pro managed to amplify the wrinkles on my forehead. In fact, my wife said my persona looked like I was run through an aging filter. Yeah, is that. Now you originally and for good reason, actually, you described your imagery as holographic, right? And now that changed to spatial. Was there a reason for that? Was that just a marketing? Because it did make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's we're trying to appeal to a wider audience. And when Apple starts to change the language around something, we better pay attention, I guess is how to put it. And you know, I know holograms is still a loaded term for some folks. Like I did classic interference holography with coherent light in the way that, you know, technical folks would refer to holograms. So I did that. I think some of you already know this. I did that when I was growing up in high school in Florida with the holography handbook. But then I did it for a year at MIT in the media lab in the course that Steve Benton taught. And so I you know, did all the classic hologram stuff, but most people don't know what the fuck that is.
Right.
Like they, you know, they think hologram, they think 3D without glasses. That's it. So that'll still be what we refer to as the content that flows into the systems, because terms like light field imagery or multi-view or whatnot is too confusing to the general audience.
Too confusing.
Yeah.
You know, like even my wife looks at, you know, she created a term. You did a very good job. Uplift. That's a good one. I think that's a good term. It's a little vague, but it makes some better sense. My wife would just say this. I like it the other way. That's what it brought. 3D Schmied. Imagine what this woman has to endure, right? But she looked at it, said, you know, we got some nice family shots like you showed, and they really are incredibly engaging. Just on the, you know, I have one of those Leopads too. And I also, my grandson was over playing with the original, your first,
Right.
yeah, he plays with that all the time. You know, just growing up with holograms. Now I got to tell him it's spatial. What does he know about it? I like it that way. That's it. And that's really where this is that you know, you're not as fancy as me. I like to make it seem like I'm smarter than I am. I would call it the bifurcation. You know,
Right.
the 3D is going that way. Typical 2-camera, you know, and there is something to be said about that.
Oh, yeah.
Probably not by the next generation, but certainly until they look back at what we did. But I don't know how, you know, if you really can't embrace a technology. Oh, it's left and right, but it's still a trick, right?
I think the content that you know, it's stereo that's in the Vision Pro, and it looks amazing. And so you know, when I was going to undergrad at MIT, I built up a little, this is like a sidebar. I built up like a little fake like house. This will make me sound a little weird. I built up a little fake house in the room that I was in.
Not that it's crap, but go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a window in it. And on the window, one side was red and one side was blue. And I had a projector that was projecting a little slide that was an anaglyph slide on the wall to look through. And so I'm a fan of all types of 3D, and all of them have a variety of different advantages. You know, you can get in, we all know, like we're preaching to the choir here. And so that's fantastic. But as the resolution of screens goes up and up and up, and as we apply some new techniques to something like the Looking Glass, you can also have multi-viewer content that starts to approach something that feels as good as glasses-based stereo content for certain types of content. and it can let you take archival content as well and turn it into something that's 3D. Like, I wish y'all could see this in person, but a lot of this, let me try to show you an example here. It won't show up, I'm sure, very well on the video. I'm almost there. Yeah, so this is not my baby. This is a stock photo. So it's a little blown out. It's a little blown out.
No,
But
blown out for you. I can actually. I think they can see it.
So this was a 2D photograph of a baby, stock photo, and then Marigold was applied and generated the depth map, and then we generated the multiple views. I think this looks as good as what it would look like with in stereo. Not all content's like that. That's super deep, like landscapes and what have you. But for certain content, it's it can be of similar quality, and you have the advantage that multiple people can enjoy it. So I think there's going to be a lot of ways to get from 2D to 3D. Some of them will be headset based. Some of them will be, single viewer type of experiences. And then some of them will be multi-viewer experiences. And some of them will be with content that was shot in 3D with both stereo cameras, but also light field cameras that have multiple camera arrays. But then a lot is actually the point of this. What I'm trying to share in this talk is the AI generated stuff is actually accelerating at a tremendous rate in 3D. And I know everyone just talks about the conversational AI stuff with ChatGPT and so on, but for whatever reason, generative AI researchers are also 3D nerds. And so there's an insane amount of research that's been going into 3D generation of full light field content and of depth map content that is changing the game right now. It's changing the game for Looking Glass, but I think it's going to change the game for 3D generally over the next year or two. And that's really exciting as 3D becomes something that isn't niche anymore. I really think that now is the time that at least I've been waiting for 30 plus years since I was a little kid, and where everyone can enjoy it and understand why we love it so much.
Now, if you took, somebody must have done this experiment. If not, somebody do this, all right? And come back next week with it, because I ain't got the time. But what if you took, so you have a two camera image, a stereo image, and you took one of the views and you ran it through Marigold and saw what it did there and compared it to the two. I would love to see how that held up. And I would also, is there an advantage just from a content or creator to manipulate the image more efficiently if you have a two camera shot that you run through? Can you manipulate? Okay. Is that a question or an answer? Because you're nodding. That's one of the problems with video. If you're on the phone, I wouldn't. Yes.
We've been running these experiments. So you can generate, typically to do a multi-view generation from a stereo pair, video or photo, you would generate the depth map from that stereo pair. They call it the disparity map, but like we call it a depth map. And then you would use that to synthesize the multiple perspectives. And this is stuff that folks were doing, in 2010, 2011, 2012, with other autostereoscopic stuff. That's the typical way you would do it. But what's happening now is that the disparity map or the depth map that's generated from a stereo pair can be inferior to the AI generated depth map from something like Marigold. And again, there's something new that just came out 2 or 3 days ago that purports to be even better. And so maybe you don't need to use the stereo pair for that generation. However, NVIDIA is taking a totally different approach where they're generating multiple views from a single image. There's another group that I know about that I can't really talk about, but big company that is using multiple cameras and, is interpolating between those, which is more, which maybe gets a higher quality level than you can get with the depth map or disparity map. So I think all of this is going to shake out over the next year or two. It's kind of like, in the early days of flight where no one knew how you were going to get like airborne. And so you got like the jumping car thing. You got the guy with the wings jumping off the cliff. But then, the Wright brothers figured it out with warped wings, and that's basically what we're like still using today. And that was the way that, that was the way forward for 100+ years. And I think that's the moment that we're at in some of these 3D nuances. What's the warped wing that we end up using as the default for 3D generation over the next 100 years? And I think it's going to be sorted out actually over the next year or so.
I think, some of the things that possibly people who have been involved in traditional stereo, what gives them a little pain is the effort that it took to get that, what it takes to do that, and and that whole process, which is part of the the creative process, which you feel like you've done it. Now those images that you thought, well, were lost forever, because the other side of it, lost forever. Now all of a sudden, almost something, electrons are working, right? Electrons are sweating to do it, but you're not. So that maybe it may make give them a little bit of a problem in saying, okay, uplifting, synthesize, conversion.
Yeah,
it's not right.
I get it. And the Looking Glass is a multi-view optics system. So I've looked at stereo content that like I've shot in it in pure stereo rather than converting it, because I wanted to, and this is like a kind of sidebar weird advanced thing, because the Looking Glass is not a track system. So like the old Fujifilm FinePix sort of like viewfinder, you got to like be in one spot to see it in 3D. But that looks great, actually. If you there's some experiments that we do in the background around this stuff all the time. That does look great. So I totally understand that in the photographic process, like capturing that essence, but then feeling it could be not represented appropriately by some AI generating algorithm. I understand that. And all I can say about it is Looking Glass is working on even future systems that I can't talk about in detail here, but that hopefully are able to preserve the best of both worlds, where you can get that easy synthetic synthesized content that I think folks who don't understand the power of stereo will love, but then also supports the magic of stereo photography and video. And again, I love 3D in all forms. I mean, I actually didn't love the VR headsets for a long time, but now I think the new ones are fantastic. So I want it all, man. I want it all.
I know.
And we're gonna get it all, like, to folks over time.
Did you say that? I know it's going to be. It's true. That's the answer for me. But yeah, I because I do have it as a kid. I was like 12. I wanted to be a photographer. I shot a lot in 2D, and some of those images when I uplift them, I like that one. Sounds happier. Conversion sounds like, whoa.
Yeah, right.
Uplift. Yeah, I could be uplifted. I'm good with that.
Right.
It does have this tremendous emotional draw. 50 years past those pictures, and so two things happen, and it's human nature stuff. I'm just talking human nature stuff. Internally, I go, all the effort, what it was like to shoot the Millennium in Times Square with 64 ASA Kodachrome on a stereo realist, but I also shot with the single camera, right? So there's that part of me that goes, all that effort, man. Now anybody could just take any picture they shot there and convert it. So I think a lot of people have that same feeling, like, wow, it's almost like you're being cheated. I'm not saying you are, but I'm just saying that feeling, all that work, man. And then I look at all those thousands of pictures I shot of everything I did, because as a kid, I wanted to be a photographer. So I shot a lot, just about every industry, everything I was in, I shot all kinds of shots. So I go, okay, I can convert them. There are thousands of them now. But there's almost that part of me, that wants that goes showing I'm cheating. Like, I'll get past that shit. Like, there's no doubt. But I could see people's apprehension with it. I understand it, because it really drags me down. Going, man.
Well, I think stereo capture is now guaranteed to be a part of the future, with the Vision Pro being a stereo first system in this iteration. I think eventually they're going to want to support more like light field generated content and whatnot, so you can look around it in the headset. But they didn't right now. And so the phones, you know, have very small baseline stereo. I've been shooting a bunch of stereo capture basically with the iPhone 15. So I've got my kids picking the loquats off the tree. I've got the this and the that, you know, and viewing it in different systems. I'm viewing it in the Vision Pro. I'm testing different stuff in the Looking Glass and this and that. And it's fantastic to be able to shoot in stereo with a phone that I have in my pocket. And so that's a guaranteed part of the future. And all I can say is Looking Glass like recognizes that and acknowledges it. So, you know, stay tuned, I guess.
Yes. Oh, we're all staying tuned to what you guys are doing. You know, just to get back to what you initially said, and we'll go back and then I have to open the mics for people. So, you know, I've given my sons, all my sons have W3s, right? So but none of them open stereo photo. Matter of fact, when they come over, they give me the chip. So that there's that thing that thirst for it, because they always have them in any kind of baptism or anything else. You always have, but there's no place to view them easily. That's always the complaint. But more importantly, it's the effort. Like they love seeing it in 3D, but all that extra effort that you need to get to that point. So, right, when you lift that burden, this is it. I got to open those mics, but this is it. Okay, if this was a roller coaster, right? And you were coming up that hill in the roller coaster, where do you think we are in the road? I know we aren't on the way down, because that's going to be a hell of a trip, but we're getting close. I'm pretty confident. Where do you think we are in it? Halfway up, quarter, top, ready to drop? What are you thinking?
I think it's over the next year or two, it's going to be convenience is king for the general consumer. And if something's not convenient, they're not going to do it, no matter how great the outcome is. And so I think for wide exposure of 3D, that's good. Maybe not the best it can possibly be, but 3D, that's good. And better than the 2D versions of what folks would see. I think we're going to see that people, like normal people, can do that over the next year or two. And Apple's going to like shouting from the mountaintops that this is possible. But then I also think there's going to be more interest in that even further level up, that you can take 3D when you are a professional. But folks have to know that there's something to this at first. You know, up until now, a lot of people are like, 3D, who cares? I don't understand why you're doing, like, people tell me like, why are you doing this? Like for the, you know, last 12 years. But that's different now. Like people now are like, oh yeah, we get it. Tim Cook was talking about the 3D and I tried it and it was fucking amazing. These are people who have never seen a stereo photograph in their life.
Yeah. Well, maybe Apple, I don't think this one came up during the focus groups, no pun intended, for spatial, but shouldn't it be called facial computing? Okay, you like that. I got to leave at this point.
Okay. Yeah,
anyway,
that's good.
no, I will be here. I just want to send us on to the.
That. I'm going to steal that.
No, you can have it. 2%. Anyway, thanks to the crew in this week's guest, Sean Frank. Thank you so much, Sean. Now we change gears and head off to the after party where great minds meet. You will be able to unmute yourself, but please stifle yourself unless you can add to the conversation. Please stay connected and you'll be brought to our after party with our host, Joe Pedotto. We got a few minutes left. I'm sure you got a load of questions. And if you could let it roll, but there we go. We're ready to go. Here it comes. Credit roll.
Scandal and the vice. I love it, New York.
party. I wanted to start with just one. I wanted to roll back into the chat. Mark Jeffcock had a question for Sean. Sean, thank you for hanging out. Um, I don't understand the question. I like, as John has said, I like not being the smartest guy in the room, and I come here every week and I'm the dumbest guy in the room. So I'm just going to read it. Question for Sean. Please talk a bit on the capture of static scenes with Luma AI, Gaussian splats, and how to convert that to be displayable on the Looking Glass Go.
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's all this new 3D scanning stuff where you can take a video around an object or a room or a scene, and then 3D something like a 3D model is generated. But it's different than the 3D model generations of the past, because in a Gaussian splat, each of the points of light in the point cloud that's generated from what you scan. So let's say I scanned this banana. Then I would, the Gaussian splat software like Luma AI makes, but this is supported in a lot of other systems like Scaniverse and Polycam and whatnot now. Any way you can use a phone to scan around something. Instead of just a point cloud, each of the points has like directional information, meaning you can see something change how it looks. The shininess changes as you look around something. So that means like the shininess of this banana would show up in the splat. Or I actually have an example here I can show. This was a splat of some fish in a fish market that I scanned with my phone using the Gaussian splat technique. And you can see how, look how insane that is. That's like the shininess of the fish's skin and like the ice under the fish. It's more than a 3D model. And so to answer the question, we have a web viewer that I can give folks access to if they ping me, or you can go onto our Discord and check it out, or you can just email me. I'll drop my email in here. Let me just do it. And yeah, it's a web viewer. So when you plug in your Looking Glass Go, you'll be able to manipulate and see the splat that you took with Luma AI software in your Looking Glass Go. We're also trying to figure out ways to make this work completely untethered. But basically, it's an advanced 3D scanning technology, but it gives fantastic results.
Just amazing. Just amazing. Now, see, Jim F. has raised a hand. Jim, you want to unmute and ask your question? Jim F. has a raised hand. I'm looking for a Jim F. Jim F. Boris, I think, had a question.
I'm here. I was having a hard time getting it unmuted. Anyways, I was wondering if I've got a Looking Glass display in front of me and I turn my head sideways, do I still see 3D?
You can turn your head about 45 degrees, and there's enough that, you know, these systems generate between 45 to up to 100 perspectives. So they're a really dense field of light. And so as you turn your head, you'll still be getting different perspectives into each of the eyes until you go past about 45 degrees, and then you will see the content flatten.
Okay.
It's a horizontal parallax only system, but it's very forgiving to doing anything other than like laying down next to it.
Okay. So with a real hologram, we would see 3D if we turned our head sideways completely.
Yeah, a classic interference pattern hologram would have full parallax.
Okay.
But you need an extremely dense like photographic medium for that,
Yeah.
and there's no like digital way to get
Okay.
to that level of resolution right now.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, great question.
Anyone else have a question for our star interviewee today?
I know Boris.
You know
Boris
you're going to
had his
get an
hand up.
intelligent answer today.
How do I raise my hand in these things? I don't know how.
I believe if you just do this, I'm just doing this, and an icon is starting to show up on my screen, and now it says, "Hey Joe, put your effing hand down." So do you
I
have
don't know
Peter?
if Boris wants
Do you have
to.
a
Yeah.
question?
Yes, sorry. How do I make a hand raised for a question?
Raise your hand. As
Go down to reactions at the bottom and click on it. There's a reactions, you can click on it and then you can press raise hand. There's also an automatic camera thing that'll maybe do it.
I don't see the word reaction anywhere down here.
Yeah, it
Participants.
depends on your interface, but
Well, Peter, let's just pretend that it's happened and let's recognize you and give you the floor.
All right, thank you for a quick question is to Sean. Is this thing come in landscape mode by any chance?
So the ones that we were selling are only portrait oriented. Just we got to get over a certain quantity. We have made experimental between us. We've made experimental systems that are landscape, but they're not for individual sale. So those are only going to be for like if someone comes along and wants to place some huge order, then we'll go into production with those. But we're still a pretty small company. You know, we're like 40 people. And so we can only do so much. So direct answer is it's the Looking Glass Go is portrait only. The bigger systems come in either portrait or landscape. But they're the more expensive, bigger sort of enterprisey systems.
What kind of money is the 32-inch monitor there?
It's like it's over $10,000, the 32-inch. The 16-inch is $3,000. But still on the pricey end for individual, although cheaper than the Vision Pro.
My library is asking for a big TV to put in their library. That's why 32-inch would be better for me.
Yeah, I mean they're getting cheaper all the time, but right now those are still on the pricey end for sure.
Thank you.
We've got a couple of quick questions here. From Bill, does Looking Glass Studio accept side-by-side or MPO input?
It doesn't directly. There is a hack to display your stereo content in a Looking Glass. And we're figuring out a way to make that sort of more user-friendly, potentially. Right now, the best way to get something that you might have shot with, something that's an MPO format, or even something that you might have shot with the new like iPhone 15 that can output stereo, is actually to take one of the images and then generate the depth from it, which our software does automatically in the background. I know from the questions before in the conversation that may be unsatisfying or unsatisfactory for folks. And, we're looking at it because in any situation, there's a longer answer for why that is trickier to implement for the general consumer than it may at first seem for MPO or side-by-side upload that doesn't just strip an image out and generates the depth. And I can go into that with anyone.
Well, we've got a couple people with raised hands, but I want to hit one more question from the chat from William Walters, because I hope it'll be a short one. Will we be able to save the generated Marigold images for future offline viewing?
Yeah. So the primary way that we think folks will use their Looking Glass Go's is through the online platform. Again, for the average user. But there is a piece of software that we provide for free called Looking Glass Studio, which is a desktop piece of software that doesn't require any connection to the internet. And so if you plug in your Looking Glass Go, or any Looking Glass really, into your computer, then you're able to view that content generated, for instance, from Marigold directly in your Looking Glass without ever having to go through Looking Glass's servers. And we did that because we know some folks maybe have stuff they don't want to like upload or this or that. So it's flexible both ways for online or offline.
Great. Now, see, Jay, you have a question?
Yeah. For putting a Looking Glass Go in a retail store, do you have some sort of security attachment?
There's a let me see. If we added that. No, on the default units, there was an experimental unit that we were making that had a little attachment for it. But no, for these we don't. but I guess you could probably apply one of the security stickers with the little wires that they use for phones on the Go. You know, the Go looks like this, and so could presumably like add it on here. So if someone wouldn't be able to run away with it, but we don't have a specific attachment for that. These do fold down too, by the way, if for folks who didn't know, and then you fold it up on your desk.
He's still selling that little frame that
Yeah.
that's on.
Yeah. So there's accessories like a frame. There's a battery pack that plugs into the back for $30. And we're going to release the files for the frame too, for folks who want to 3D print their own frames and what have you. Trying to make it as flexible as possible.
Now on my screen, it says someone else has a raised hand, but it's not indicating who it is. Is there someone that's got a pressing question? Please speak up.
Jim F.
Yeah, I was just wondering, with the Vision Pro, you can get what's called a developer strap that's got a USB-C interface on it. And I was wondering, can you hook the Looking Glass up to that?
Directly to the Apple Vision Pro?
Yeah.
We haven't tried, so I don't know. I would doubt that would work immediately. We have gotten Apple products, phones to run applications in the Looking Glass Go. So I would say it's not a 0 probability, but we haven't tried that yet. The Looking Glass Go is USB-C DP, which means it takes both power and a video signal, DisplayPort video signal. So to your point, it's is maybe possible, but we've never tried it.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm curious, what are some of the applications for the 16-inch and 32-inch displays? I know that the initial idea was that these would be very helpful to look at 3D models and preview CGI effects for film. Is that how they seem to be being used, or are there other applications that have proven popular for them?
Yeah, another great question. A lot of R&D and exploration is done on these systems. So experimental holographic communication or light field communication, like NVIDIA is doing and others are doing. Things like design review, presentation of products in an advertising context. So groups like Pixar and Louis Vuitton and others use our displays to show products that they want to be eye-catching, that maybe need to have a shine or shimmer, like a watch, as you walk by it. So those types of things. I would say the killer app has not yet emerged for the displays, but it really hasn't for the spatial ecosystem yet, even for Apple. And so we're still observing if it's going to be spatial memories, communication, design, or something else, and we're trying to support as much as we can until that becomes clear.
Thank you. You know, Sean, I just want to express the appreciation of our entire audience and the crew here for you making both your time and your expertise available to us. I don't think
Thank you for having me. Yeah, this was great.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're about one of the most articulate people in 3D.
Thank you.
And Johnny Laser often says, if you're the smartest person in the room, find another room. Find another room where you can be around smart people. I think more than anything else, these Saturday sessions have given kind of cross section of 3D community here in America, or overseas, access to some really bright men and women. I just like to acknowledge the level that you're working at and that you're playing at. You're by my standards, I'm 400 years old. You're a relatively young man. You're already quite accomplished. Earlier you said you expressed optimism about 3D sort of being a default moving forward into the next era of computing. I hope you're right.
Yeah. Me too.
With all my heart. With all my heart. And you're such a smart guy. I figure you probably are right.
And you know, and I'm sorry if I might have missed it if you've covered this, but what's sort of the current ETA for these amazing little holographic displays, the newest product? Are they? I know that the Kickstarter was a while back. Any update on when they're going to be hitting the market?
Yeah, they'll be shipping at the tail end of June. So
great.
on track to what we were originally aiming for. And yeah, as always, if anyone's when I'm in Brooklyn, if anyone's around, then let me know if you want to see any of this stuff in person. You know, love to have folks over and see you.
A very, very gracious offer. Thank you.
We'll be barging in there for sure on you. You were great, man. Has anybody got any more questions? I think we kind of covered a lot of good ground. That was.
I think Boris had one, but I don't know if his answer was. If his question was answered.
I had a question long ago, which has actually been abundantly answered, and I thank you for that. It was about whether or not there's X and Y parallax, and there is only X parallax.
Yeah.
And also I had a question about basically photogrammetry, but whatever that splat thing you were talking about was the answer I was looking for. You can capture other stereoscopic effects like iridescence and so on, with, I guess, a particular kind of software that you have on your phone to scan. I want to research that. I don't know anything about that, but I like that.
Yeah, I'm dropping some names in the chat of different splatting, scanning software that Looking Glass doesn't make. We integrate with one of these, Luma AI, but there's several. I haven't actually tried the newest one, Scaniverse. I use Luma AI a lot to do scans of, I'll scan statues, or my kids are used to holding still now so that I can scan them. We've gone back to that era of photography. And yeah, there's some technique, there's videos and stuff like that too that I think are on the Looking Glass website blog somewhere, where Missy on our team shares some of the techniques that she's developed as well for doing really good splat scans.
The last time I used Scaniverse, it works only for iPad products, right? So all of them are just for iPhones or Apple products?
The Scaniverse one, I don't know. I just saw the news about it yesterday that they're supporting splats. So I haven't had it yesterday or 2 days ago. So
to help you out on that one, because I'm
cool.
half an hour I'm teaching a course on photogrammetry.
Oh, okay.
So Scaniverse is still only on iPhone. Well, they said they were going to put an Android version out like a year and a half ago, but still not around to it. The Luma AI have an Android beta out at the moment, so they must just be a month or two away from having an Android version. Polycam does Android and iPhone. And by the way, and you missed Kiri Engine, which does a rather nice Gaussian splat.
Ah, great. Yeah, and thank you for that. What I do actually is I'll take a video. I don't use the guides that Luma AI or these other pieces of software suggest. I just take a video around something at 60 frames per second at 4K. And then I upload that video to my account on Luma AI's website. So even if I shot the video with, any camera, really, it doesn't have to be an iPhone, then it will process the splat on the web. And so, that's what I do. And that's how I get the best results, actually. I don't really like their guides.
Yeah, I'd always recommend going up to the web to get a bit of cloud power to produce a Gaussian splat. Right now, Gaussian splats are a complete pain to be able to visualize in any good way. There are very few programs in which you can get to see the results. So I've got several nice Gaussian splats, or at least I think I have, and so have my students, but we can't really see them terribly well. So looking forward to my Looking Glass Go arriving in the
great.
post.
Yeah, fantastic.
Hey, you introduced some nice jargon today. Any jargon, people? We got the uplift. We got the cloud power.
Yeah, the splats.
Yeah. The cloud power, man. It's good, because what are we unless we can create confusing jargon? It's nothing like through the window. What do you mean by that? You'll figure it out. Okay, that's helping. You were so wonderful. And look, I don't like to go past the time, but if any more questions, because while we got you, we can ring your brain out. Any more questions? Well, I guess
Yeah,
that's
thanks for having me, everybody. I
Oh.
really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming back, and we hope that you'll visit us again.
Yeah,
Robert
this was great.
Swarth had a question.
Oh, Rob, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, SPLAT, is that an acronym for something? SPLAT? What
I
is that
don't-
word? Is that
I
just,
don't know if it's an acronym.
No,
for
no,
anything.
it just means it just looks like a splat.
Yeah.
Just like somebody's just thrown a bit of paint on the wall. It was full of a jelly bean shape, with it denser in the center, bit more transparent at the edges, and it can be a different color from different angles.
and my other thought I just wanted to say is when they can finally do a headset, which is not any more complicated than a pair of glasses, then I think it has a chance. But I think I'm not going to sit around wearing a big heavy thing like that for it.
And the next thing would be tear sensors, right? Like if you get emotionally tied in, there should be a sensor that's like
Hey, what-
send the signal.
Hey,
Yeah.
what- put the chip in
They
your
already
head.
came up with goggles that are really like glasses about 3 or 4 years ago. The battery is extended and put into your pocket, so that takes all the weight and everything off of that. But it's not really gone into mass development.
Well, that's perfect, John. Then he'll say, are you, I couldn't get it out. You would have. Are you seeing it 3D or are you just happy to see me? With the
I see
pocket in the crowd.
Johnny
Okay.
Laser. I see in the chat that Bob Bloomberg has a question. Bob?
Yeah, I
Leave
just
that
didn't
door
get
open. Keep it, go, Bob.
yeah, if you're doing your own video at 60 frames per second, 4K, where did you say you were uploading on the web?
To Luma AI. So it's I don't remember. I think their website. Hold on, let me just get it real quick.
Didn't you say you were bypassing Luma AI and doing your own?
We don't have a public version of the one that we bypass up, but Luma AI has a web-based upload, and then we've got a web viewer that will tie into any of your uploaded splats, so you can view it in your Looking Glass products. But for the web viewing, the best, the one that we use the most, I haven't used them as much as Mark or other folks on the call, but the one we use a lot is Luma. I don't know if it's the best, but it's
cool.
Nice.
Thank you. And thanks for the presentation. Great.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for everyone. Thank you, Mark, for giving us jargon. We got a pail of jargon from this show. I lost track. But thank you, man. We needed because you know what it's like. You need secret words, secret passwords. You know, back in high school, I don't know if you can hear this knock, but it'll be like, I don't know if you heard that, but then you knew it was cool. If you heard that, now I'm gonna have to kill you guys. Sorry. On that great note, well, another show has come to an end, and a big thanks to this week's guest, Sean Frank. Thanks to our amazing crew for making this all possible, Stereo Doro, Jay Kuznets, Jim Harp, Joe Pedotto, Paul Hutchins, and you for stopping by to see what you've been missing in 3D. See you again next week. Until then, don't be stingy with your camera, whether it's a 2-1 or a 3-1 or it's a facial camera or whatever it is. Don't be stingy with it. And the most important thing, I guess the most important advice I have to give is share your joy, count your blessings. See you again next week. Thank you again, Sean.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
New York, so good they named it twice. New York, all the scandal and the vice. I love it, New York, now isn't it a pity? What they say about New York, so good they named it twice.